You know, one of the ways that we know how we are in our faith is how we deal with the strife in our life. Because the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 10 that God will not give you any more temptation than what you can stand, and that he will always give you a way out. The question is are you man enough to take it? Because a biblical man steps up, leads, and is courageous. Now, taking the gender out of this, Paul is telling us to be courageous in our faith, to stand up for what we believe, to stand firm, to be watchful, to not care what the people around us think, but to represent Christ in a loving way. I believe that the key to the church moving forward, for some strange reason, the Bible, in my framework of thinking, has put men into leadership. I'm not saying ladies can't be in leadership. I'm not going to get into that argument. But what I am saying is that predominantly the Bible has put men into leadership and that we lead the churches. And part of a problem in the church today is that we have very lousy men. And so the women are stepping up and they're beginning to lead. Anybody ever heard of Mars Hill, Mark Driscoll? Yeah, you heard of him? His church is now a church of 8,000 or something like that. And when he did his church plant, if you read his book, Confessions of a Reformation Reverend is what it's called, he tells the story about his church and the progressing of his church. And he was doing a lot of counseling. His church was about 100 people, and it was doing well, but it was really messy. And he just was like appointment after appointment after appointment after appointment with all these guys that are like hooked on porn and doing this and doing that. And he just got so tired of it. He was like, okay, I got to have one big corporate meeting with all the men, and we got to deal with this because this is just ridiculous. And he took a whole Saturday, and he laid out what a biblical man is, and he challenged all of those men to step up and be a man, and the whole place exploded. Within a year later, it was a church of 8,000 from 100. Because the men stepped up and became men. Not these girly little things that we got today. I'm sorry, but I won't hold back on that, guys. You need to be a man. And if you come into my office and you're a girly man, I'm going to tell you that. And you know how you show this? How you treat women. That's how you show whether you're a biblical man or not. Be a man. I should show you Mark Driscoll's version of that. He stands up and literally screams at his congregation. Literally, I'll show it to you sometime. Download it. He then tells us to do everything in love. Well, that just makes sense, doesn't it? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So if we're being watchful, if we're standing firm in our faith, if we're being a man, if we're being strong, being a man, meaning courageous, and then we do everything in love, now Jesus is going to be shown for everything we do. You see, the Bible left the wrath to him. The Bible left the judging to him. We don't judge whether someone's saved. We don't judge whether someone is living by our laws. We do none of that. We worry about ourselves and we let people see Jesus through that. We don't determine whether a person is doing something that we don't approve of. It's not our job. Then people will say, well, what about like church discipline? That's right. You're looking at one of the guys that job belongs to. That's the leadership in the church that has certain boundaries that we do discipline under, but that discipline is to lead to restoration, to the restoring of a person in their faith. Quite often we walk around and we judge others based on how they're living their lifestyle. And the Bible says that you have a plank in your own eye and you need to deal with it first. There's nobody in here that's a perfect Christian. It doesn't exist. So if you're doing everything in love, you're not snubbing someone because you feel they're not living the right way. Because the minute you snub them, you just made yourself worse than them. And I don't care what sin it is that they're making. You are a Christian and you did something not in love. And I mean this because I see it and it frustrates me every day, the legalism that surrounds the church of the certain rules and regulations that we have. Yes, the Bible gives us guidelines to live our lives. It does give us things that you really shouldn't lean towards that. But we're not the ones that judge someone for it. It breaks down the relationships. It breaks down the relationships that you have. You could be used by God to be part of that person's restoration, but instead you choose to snub them. You choose to turn your back on them and say, I can't associate with that person because they watch movies I don't like. And instead, God wanted to use you to help restore them. Yes, I get excited about this because it ticks me off. You see, if we're being watchful, if we're standing firm in our faith, if we're being a man, and if we're doing everything in love, now we're being a Christian. That's the boundaries that the Bible gives us. The rest is about our maturity in our faith, our knowledge about the nature of God. Remember what I said. If you have a wrathful God, you are a very angry Christian. If you have a loving God, you are a very fluffy Christian. You need to balance them. We have a wrathful, loving God. Kind of a weird combination, right? He's just. True justice, not our legal system justice, meaning he makes the perfect decision. Your decisions are flawed. His are perfect. Because he does it all in love. Anybody ever heard of tough love? God knows what that is. How many people have thrown their arms up and went, okay, enough, God. You've shaped me and molded me into the person I'm supposed to be. I'm good. I've done that yesterday. Yeah, just about every day. That's what drives me towards my next series. I think that this relationship series was a practical series of functioning in relationship. It maybe wasn't what you expected because I pointed us straight to God right from day one and said that is what shapes your entire relational aspects of how you live. How close are you to God?